Okay, we're back in R1, order of operations, and this is just the introduction to that. So I'm going to have to talk a little bit about the order of operations, and then we'll just be doing, I think, about 10 problems. So the problem that you see on the paper now, we're not going to be doing that just yet, but I just want you to see what sort of things we're going to encounter. So when you look at that, you go, I wouldn't even know where to begin. So that's where order of operations comes in. It tells you what to do in what order. So many of you already know and you're familiar with, we've all known this since we were very young, PEMDAS. And we probably were taught, a way to remember that is, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. So for about 50 years, we have been excusing dear Aunt Sally. I don't know what she did that requires so much forgiving and excusing, but in any case, there you have it. Now, I have a problem with this. I don't like it written like this because this implies that you always multiply before division and you always add before subtract. And you're going, oh, that's what those letters stand for. So let's go and just create. Before we even talk about what those letters stand for, I just can't stand this. I'm just going to get rid of it. So I would prefer to write it as P, E, M and D, and then a little arrow here, and I'll explain what all this is about, and A and S. So, what these stand for. What do you think P stands for? Parentheses. Okay, and we have much more to talk about on parentheses. E, oh, what's that stand for? Yeah, what we just talked about, exponents, and we're all experts on exponents now. Then we have in the M and the D and multiplication, and its cousin, different side of the same coin, its inverse, division, and then of course, I bet you guessed it, addition and subtraction. The reason that I do not like this, one more time, is that when you've written it in that way, it implies that you always, if you can still see that, multiply before divide. No, that's not always the case. And then or add before you subtract. Not the case. Okay, so going back to my preferred version, let's put a little heart by that because we like this so much better. We do parentheses, we evaluate our exponents, and then this is the important section. I've written multiplication and division in one circle, meaning they have equal weight. So how you decide which one you do first, what do you think that arrow means? When you have multiplication and division, that's an ugly arrow, but you just go from left to right. Everybody got that? So that arrow indicates left to right, which is one of the times we get to do it just like as we would read it. And then the other cool thing about addition and subtraction, when all you have left in the problem is addition and subtraction, you can do that in any order that you prefer. For example, I've got to emphasize that multiplication and division issue there. Here we've got a problem with both division and multiplication. Which do we do first? Well, since we've got both of them, we just go left to right, which would indicate that we would do the division first. So I'm going to underline that and say, okay, if I do that division, I would get 4. And then if I haven't underlined it, I write it all again. Now we just have multiplication, so we can just multiply that out, and we would get 8. That's about it for my start for the introduction of PEMDAS, but not written as one word. The one thing that I also want to say in closing here is that in my experience, one thing that I found is that students, we study this section on order of operations, they become very proficient in it, and then when they get to other problems, they forget all about it. So the order of operations always holds. And I'm going to give you an easy way to handle that kind of equation that we saw at the beginning, that kind of expression that we saw at the beginning, to know where to start, how to get the right answer on that. Okay, I will see you when we have to talk about parentheses. So this parentheses, this P in our order of operations here stands for parentheses, like we said, but there's more to the story about parentheses than meets the eye. So next lesson, all of the uses of parentheses.